So we will go for another amendment at this time. Ms. Harman, you have a recognition for an amendment that's at the desk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, let me ask you some questions. Is this amendment to Division C? Was it submitted within 2-hour lead time for review, and then are there copies to be distributed?
Yes, it was, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, the clerk will report the Harman
It's
amendment.
Harman 36.
Wasn't it our turn?
Well, we drew his, so we ought to have a turn.
Okay.
Amendment offered by Ms. Harman of California and Mr. Sarbanes of Maryland. At the end of Title V of Division C, add the following. Subtitle: Assisting veterans with military emergency medical training to become state licensed or certified emergency medical technicians, EMTs. Section blank. Assisting veterans with military emergency medical training to become state licensed or certified emergency medical technicians, EMTs.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask unanimous consent that the reading be dispensed with.
Without objection, the reading of the amendment will be dispensed with, and the gentlelady from California is recognized to explain it. And someone wants to reserve a point of order? Mr. Scalise reserves a point of order.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this amendment was worked out with Mr. Sarbanes and your excellent staff, and also is part of legislation that I have offered with two colleagues, Stephanie Herseth-Sandlin and Melissa Bean. It would bolster the safety and security of our communities by enhancing the surge capacity of local medical facilities, and at the same time it would help returning veterans transition into civilian life. The amendment authorizes grant funding to create a fast track for military medics to become emergency responders. It also commissions a GAO study aimed at identifying obstacles keeping former military medical professionals from entering civilian medical fields. Mr. Chairman, everyone here understands the extraordinary service performed by military medics on the battlefields in Iraq and Afghanistan. They are the true MASH champions of our war efforts in those places, and they gain invaluable experience responding to IED attacks and other catastrophic emergencies on the battlefield. However, when they return home, the unemployment rate of returning vets is about 30%, and they have to start at the bottom getting training to become civilian EMTs. We think this makes no sense, and their experience should be embraced, and they should be fast-tracked for service that is absolutely critical in our local hospitals and other facilities. Many hospitals and emergency medical services throughout the country now operate at or near capacity, and obviously in the event of a terrorist attack, major natural disaster, or other MASH casualty incident, the resulting surge of patients would overwhelm these facilities. Correcting this requires having the largest
Will the
pool.
gentlelady yield?
Will the gentlelady yield to me before Mr. Barton, please?
Mr. Chairman, I would love to yield to my old friend, Mr. Booyer, first.
Because I have a sense
based
on what
his
Mr. Barton's going to do here. But here's what I'm going to ask of you, Jane. I think what you're doing here is right and it's noble. We've always had a real challenge trying to link the MOS of our soldiers to that what can be done in the real world. What I'd like to do with you, Ms. Harman, is will you please withdraw this, work with me, let me go to my Veterans Affairs Committee, and also work with DOD. I think we can even make this better, and we bring this back on Monday. I didn't know about this, Ms. Harman. I would love to do that. That's just my only request.
Reclaiming my time, Mr. Boyer, we
Yes.
did contact your staff specifically, given your experience in this area.
Yeah, I wasn't aware.
We received very positive reactions.
I said I liked it. Now that I read the amendment for the first time, and I just, what I want to do is shop it through the VA's, we have so many educational programs with the VA, and they're also working with DOD on what you're trying to do. Can I vet that?
Ms. Harman, will you yield to me?
Yes, I will, Mr. Chairman.
This is an amendment that I think Mr. Barton was going to accept. I certainly want to congratulate you and Mr. Sarbanes. I think it's a well-thought-through amendment. It doesn't preclude Mr. Boyer, as the ranking member of the Veterans Affairs Committee, from looking at further changes to it. But I don't want us to keep on taking up amendments and putting them aside. We got to close on some issues. And this one is so reasonable and so right that I would hope we just go forward with it.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman. Reclaiming my time, Mr. Boyer, I take your offer. I appreciate your good faith offer. However, we did work with a Veterans Committee member, Stephanie Herseth-Sandlin, on this, and we have been exploring how to solve this huge problem in the most effective way, and we have come to this proposal and worked with Mr. Sarbanes, and I'd like to yield to him for a minute, on a form of this that would fit well in the health care bill. And I do agree with the chairman that this is ready. And I would offer to you, after I yield to Mr. Sarbanes, to work with you on some additional initiatives we might take to help our returning vets. I'd like to yield to Mr. Sarbanes.
Further discussion of the amendment.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Barton, you saw recognition. Do you still?
Well, I did. I was going to say we were going to accept it, but I want to support Mr. Boyer. He's a former chairman of the Veterans Committee, so I personally think it's an acceptable amendment, but I yield to Congressman Boyer's judgment as the former chairman of the Veterans Committee. I personally do not oppose this amendment, but that's just me. I'm only speaking individually. I don't have the expertise that Chairman Boyer has.
Further recognition on the amendment. Mr. Sarbanes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank the committee for working on this amendment. I want to thank Ms. Harman as well. To put this in context, there's a significant set of provisions within the underlying bill that address the workforce shortages, and we've attempted in that respect to design pipelines that will produce more medical professionals over time. But there's also recognition that we need to do something in the immediate term, and the phrase I like to use to describe this kind of an initiative is rapid deployment. We have to see where we can rapidly deploy caregivers even as we are developing these pipelines over time. Ms. Harman is focused, I think, rightly on the tremendous potential in terms of the EMT profession to transition these returning veterans to that kind of work and to do it in a timely basis. I am also attracted to another portion of this amendment which asks the GAO to conduct a study to look at other ways that we can, or other opportunities to transition returning veterans into other kinds of roles going forward. So this, on the one hand, is addressing the workforce shortage that we are very concerned about. On the other hand, it's providing a tremendous opportunity to our returning veterans, and it's in keeping with other initiatives that we've undertaken in this Congress already to focus on that particular issue. So again, I thank Ms. Harman for her work on this. I would encourage everyone on the committee to support this amendment. I yield back my time.
Gentleman yields back the balance of his time. Mr. Boyer seeks recognition. Your
Mr.
recognition.
Chairman, and to Mr. Barton, Ms. Harman, Mr. Sarbanes, let me speak specifically to your amendment. Number one, let me compliment you. You also are tying into exactly where the favored winds are. So I have no objections, Mr. Chairman, if you are willing to accept this amendment with the caveat that you allow me to vet this. Now the fact that you've also worked with Stephanie, but Mike Brink, 2 buildings away, is the expert. So let me over the weekend vet this. If it's good to go, that's wonderful. If not, the gentlelady, I've worked with you on many things over the years, and if there's some recommendations or any tweaks, we'll circle back to the committee, and I think that's the best way.
Will you yield to me, Mr. Boyer?
Yes, ma'am.
So I think what you're suggesting is that we accept this amendment, assuming the committee is willing to do it, and
Yes.
if we can find some improvements
Yes.
in the next several days, we would have unanimous consent to add to this amendment to make it even better.
I believe that-
Is that what you're proposing?
That's what I'm proposing. I believe Chairman Waxman would be amenable to that, along with Mr. Barton.
Let me ask unanimous consent that should this amendment be adopted, the gentleman from Indiana, Mr. Boyer, would be permitted to offer a further amendment.
Perfecting amendment.
A perfecting amendment. Without objection, that'll be the order. Mr. Murphy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlelady from California, a colloquy, just a couple questions. Do we have a dollar value for what these grants would be?
No, we have not put that in.
My understanding is I read this does not bypass any certifications or licensing laws of any state?
No, we were careful about that, but it's to create a fast track. I mean, there are specifically demonstrated hardships for these trained medics who come back and have to start at the bottom, and a lot of the courses they have to take are way too basic for them, and yet they have to pay large registration fees, which means many of them are deterred from even becoming EMTs. This is a huge loss for our country and a loss for them.
So in other words, this would be a way that states could find out that they already went through the training and certification and do that. One other question then, are there any states who are already reviewing this? Are there any models out there already in existence that we might know of?
I understand that Kansas and Maryland are already doing this.
Oh, very good. I thank you so much, and I yield back my time, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else seek recognition? If not, we'll proceed to a vote on the Harman amendment. All those in favor of the amendment say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the amendment's agreed to.